Blair, you asked the question and I answered it honestly when I put my hand up in the second part. I wouldn't even know what to do that for the movie to the living situation. There was a guy at the bus stop on Monday morning, just in the morning, and he obviously knew me. I didn't know him, he obviously knew me because I stood for the kids a few times in the past. But he had a right to go at me because this independence thing will not work because I'll take all the jobs away from the government and all the rest of it. So how do you counteract that? It's going to be very difficult to, with the likes of Ian Davidson and his own constituency, it's going to be propaganda out there. How do we combat that and get that guy's vote back?
That's a good question. I live in Glasgow now. I'm not from Glasgow originally, but I live there now, and I know how important the yards are in Glasgow and Clydeside. I mean, not just economically, but emotionally, how connected people are to that. And I think in this community, where you so recently had you went through the trauma of almost losing the plant there or losing parts of it. I think that you'd understand that in the shape of the communities, the sense of unease that people had. But again, my sense of this, and I think Carolyn alluded to this. I think there's all the signs here of a hand being overplayed. I detect, and I know people who work in yards and family connections and things. I think it's been too blunt a threat. I think it's looked too much like bullying. It's looked too much like an attempt to intimidate. I suppose it was going to happen at some point, and in a way, it's the fact it's come out at this point is maybe not such a bad thing from the point of view of getting people to actually think about what's being said and why it's being said. I'm not an expert in shipbuilding or anything like that. I do understand the points that the Scottish Government have made, which is that there will be work in an independent Scotland in terms of our own defence forces. There's a paper out today from a new think tank making the point that an independent Scotland would spend more on defence in Scotland than is currently spent as part of the UK. Just in terms of not in terms of projecting our power anywhere else in the world, which we wouldn't do, but just in terms of the kind of the air and land and maritime defences that a small country in this part of Europe would require. We would spend more, there'd be more jobs, there would be more of an infrastructure for defence in Scotland than there currently is. So I think it's been another attempt to frighten people into adopting a no position. I don't want to sound I don't want to be glad-headed about this, because it's a big issue. I don't think it will succeed.
I think you should say your friend it's an affront that a government which has just cut 850 jobs tells you you're lucky. That's like somebody cutting off your arm and saying, well, you're lucky you're alive because of me. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. The way Scotland can control how we use our shipyards is by having that control in our Scottish Parliament. Now, as Blair alluded to, we can create in Scotland the shipping industry that we need for our country. I don't imagine, if Ian Davidson turned around and said to me, you're not going to build a warship, I can't envision Scotland ever needing a warship. What I can envision is Scotland needing ships to patrol its maritime borders. What I can envision is Scotland having shipbuilding industries similar to countries our size like Norway, who created 100 ships last year. We need to look at ways in which we can diversify. And I think a lot of the times this argument, this referendum gets boiled down to what Scotland would be like right now on its own and what Scotland would be like right now as part of the United Kingdom. What's important to realise is what Scotland can be by having the ability to make the decisions within ourselves. So if we decide that we want to become a more Scandinavian country, then we can do that. If we decide, like Blair said, there are some who want a low tax, high business profile country, then we can do that. We can't look to what Scotland is now and say, well, it's A or B, you have to choose. It's about choosing what we have now, which, we've listed quite a lot of things, and it's probably just the tip of the iceberg, compared to the potential that Scotland can be.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, it's not just about warships or patrol boats either. I mean, we're missing a trick here in Scotland with regard to wellboats. I mean, our aquaculture industry is is virtually doubling. We expect it to double in the near future. The salmon farms are going to multiply. Now, all the wellboats that are operating in Scotland are built in Norway, so there's nothing to stop us building them here. And diversification is the name of the game. So, you know, that's the way forward. Next question.
Parliament think that the bedroom tax is fair on the ones that can't afford to pay it, and why?
Well, not no, nobody thinks it's fair, that's for sure. It was a policy that was created to, what the Tories believed would solve a problem in the southeast of England. Unfortunately, they've subjected the whole of the country to it, so it's far from fair. The Scottish Government has announced £20 million towards helping to alleviate the problem, but of course that's not enough, but legally that's all the Scottish Government could release at the time. But no, nobody thinks it's fair, that's for sure.
The Labour Party think it's fair.
Well, they may well have introduced it in the first place, yeah.
The Labour Party and the Mentions that came out and said that they wanted to
The Labour Party just the whole 2.24 in the majority of keeping the bedroom tax.
which ones?
That's the amount, yeah. The amount that they support the bedroom tax. The Labour Party.
Okay, is that in Westminster?
Westminster, is it?
Okay. Right, okay, we don't have that detail. We've been busy today.
It's from the last I heard, the conference was voted that there was going to be no bedroom tax. The Scottish Labour Party came out and Jackie Bailey
for to support the bedroom tax.
Jackie Bailey came and said the Scottish
They
Government
keep the bedroom tax, they keep people who are not too big a house and charge them more up. That's what Labour.
I mean, I think too, well, I mean, the Scottish Labour Party has said and that he would be against it, and they also asked requested 50 million, and Labour's independents actually requested this before the Scottish Labour Party requested it in 3 months, so hopefully that they're
Following our lead on that one. What I would say is that this bedroom tax goes back a long way before you look at Labour governments and that. This is because of Thatcher's grand idea to sell off all council houses, which was, you know, that's fine if you want to promote an entrepreneurship society, but what you also then have to do is build more social housing, in which they didn't do. So there's a massive debt of social housing there, so that people can't leave the 2-bedroom houses to go to 1-bedroom houses, as Carolyn said. As far as I'm aware, and that information's new to me, I haven't received that today, then the Labour Party in Westminster were going to be voting against bedroom tax, and the Scottish Labour Party, through the Housing Minister Jackie Bailey, had said they'd also support scrapping the bedroom tax.
Excuse me, but you can't honestly blame just the Tories, because the Labour were in power for enough years that you could have built social house, and you did.
Okay, can we just hold fire? Can we just keep it? Keep contributions to whoever's got the microphone in their hand, and that's that chap standing up there.
Hi. Good, can you hear me? Right. Fred Hester from Grogan. Thank you very much. First of all, I've got a question for Blair and also a compliment to the Yes campaign and then a question for Alan. First of all, Blair, I was studying the Scottish independence question in March this year, and I emailed both the Yes campaign and the Better Together campaign to ask for someone to interview for part of my survey. And your name came up, and within 24 hours. And the Better Together campaign, well, they just contacted me last month. That was from March. So, congratulations for me quicker off the mark than the Better Together campaign. Anyway, the report's done and dusted now. I'm now currently studying history and politics at university, so I'm in Caroline's league, making sure. I've recently been studying the history of the Active Union 1707. That's a question for Alan. Specifically on control of the media, with your experience in the media, Blair, it seems like every time something positive comes up, you're on a back in a loser if you go on BBC Scotland. And I'm just wondering how far has that advanced in identifying complete bias in the media, specifically with the BBC, but also with some of the newspapers. And then a question for Alan. Noted down, you mentioned tribalism in Scottish politics. Well, my reading of the history of the Active Union 1705 was there was massive opposition to the Active Union, the Treaty of Union, it was agreed by a small cabal in the Scottish Parliament of nobility, and the ordinary people outside were throwing stones, and mobs were getting onto the people had to sneak out the back door down the Royal Mile. The reason that, well, it seems from reading that, the reason that the Act of Union went ahead was that the opposition to it was too fragmented and weren't coming together in one unified voice. I don't know if there's any parallels specifically within the Labour Party as well, because by and large, there's people of my generation, Labour was a kind of default position for them, and if there's going to be, they might have loyalties to the Labour Party, they also might have sentiments towards the Scottish independence, but they're still strictly Labour voters. Okay.